Hello and welcome to another video with the Bearded Tech Guy. In this video, we will be taking a look at 3 recently released products by Switchbot that they sent me to take a look at. And they are the Switchbot Contact Sensor, the Switchbot Motion Sensor, and the Switchbot Indoor Camera. Let's first take a look at the Contact Sensor. The Contact Sensor runs on 2 AAA batteries and features a light sensor, a motion sensor, and a button that can be pressed. Inside the box of the Switchbot Contact Sensor, you'll find 2 included batteries, mounting hardware, and some extra 3M pads for mounting, as well as the contact sensor. One thing I like about this sensor that I have not seen before is that the magnet can be placed on either side of it. This means if I want to put the sensor on a door frame instead of the door, I won't have to flip it upside down to get it to work. You can also have a magnet on both sides of the sensor at the same time. This could be handy if you have an exterior door with a screen door and you want to determine that the door was opened when both were opened for some reason. Just keep in mind that both magnets have to be away from the sensor for it to be triggered as open. At the time of recording this video, the Switchbot contact sensors cost $25 in the US. To add the contact sensor to your Switchbot account, go into the Switchbot app and click on the plus sign at the top right hand side of the screen. Next, insert the batteries into the sensor. You simply slide off the back of the contact sensor to do so, and then slide it back on once the batteries are in. If the sensor does not automatically get detected in the app, locate Contact Sensor and click on it. Doing so will give you instructions on how to put the sensor into pairing mode, which can be done by holding the front button of the contact sensor down until the light starts flashing, which should take only roughly 2 seconds. Once the sensor is in pairing mode, you can click on Next within the app. After the sensor is connected, you can give it a name and assign it to a room if you have them set up. Once configured, click on Save. If you have hubs added to your Switchbot account, you'll be able to select one to pair to it if you'd like. After being paired, the Switchbot app will walk you through installation with either a door installation, a window installation, or other installation. For door installation, it is recommended to be installed 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches above the floor for the motion sensor to function properly. You can click on Next at the bottom of the screen to move through the installation instructions. You can attach the contact sensor with the included 3M pads, use the included screws, or as I like to do, use museum putty to attach the sensor. For the magnet, it should not be more than 1.2 inches or 30 centimeters away from the contact sensor. When the contact sensor detects the magnet, it will glow white as a handy indicator to let you know it's close enough. Once you're at the installation test section, you'll be able to test to make sure the contact sensor functions as expected. After your testing is complete, you can click on Done. Clicking on the contact sensor will bring up the main status page where you can see the ambient status, contact status, access automations, access logs, and change settings. Clicking on the cog on the right hand side of the screen will bring you into the settings section. Here you can change notification settings, turn the indicator light on or off, change how long the contact sensor needs to be open before being considered left open, how the contact will determine someone exiting, change the installation type, calibrate the light sensor, and a few other settings. For left open, the default is 5 minutes, where if the contact sensor stays in an open state for 5 minutes, the contact will then enter a left open state. The left open state can then be used within automations. This setting can be set for between 1 minute and 30 minutes. I do wish you could turn this feature off just in case you don't need it, but 30 minutes is a pretty long time. With the Switchbot contact sensors, there's a cool feature referred to as exit. How the door is used can be used to tell the sensor if the door was used to exit the room or enter a room, which can be used within automations that I will be going over later in this video. This is accomplished either by pressing the button on the contact sensor when exiting, or by using the motion sensor, which is currently in beta. I like the idea of using the motion sensor over the button because I often forget to push the button when leaving a room, which made my automations not work. With both options, you can select how long after either the button is pressed or motion is detected that the contact sensor being opened can be registered as a room exit. The timer is great when using the motion sensor, especially in a smaller room. I do wish that you could select the action to indicate if it was an exit or an enter, which would give you more flexibility to sensor placement. Also, as a side note, you can use the motion detection within the sensor as part of automations as well. If you need to calibrate the light sensor on the contact sensor, you can do that right from here. You can also use the ambient brightness from the sensor within automations as well. You'll most likely need to update the firmware of your contact sensor, which you'll be able to tell by if you have the red up arrow showing for the device. To update the firmware, go back into the settings of the device, scroll down, and select Firmware and Battery. Next, click on Firmware Upgrade to start the process. Take note that you will want to keep the app open until the process is completed. When the upgrade process finishes, you'll get a notification on your phone and the new version will be displayed. The Switchbot Motion Sensor runs on 2 AA batteries which are included with the sensor. The sensor can be placed flat on a surface, but it also comes with a mount that can be attached to the bottom and the back of the sensor. I personally had a bit of trouble getting the mount to attach to the sensor, but that was mostly because I was worried I was going to break it. Once installed though, the mount does feel very secure. The mount can be used with the 2 included screws for a more permanent solution, or you can use the included 3M tape to attach the sensor as well. The mount does also include a magnet, so you are able to attach the sensor to metal objects, which is a nice feature for the mount. The motion sensor also has a light sensor that can be used within automations. The sensor is rated for a max range of 30 feet with a horizontal angle of 110 degrees and a vertical angle of 55 degrees. At the time of recording this video, the Switchbot Motion Sensor costs $25 in the US. To add the motion sensor to your Switchbot account, go into the Switchbot app and click on the plus sign on the top right hand side of the screen. Next, insert the batteries into the sensor. You simply pop the back off the motion sensor, then pop it back on once the batteries are in. If the sensor does not automatically get detected in the app, locate motion sensor and click on it. Doing so will give you instructions on how to put the sensor into pairing mode, which can be done by holding the top button on the motion sensor down until the light starts flashing, which should take roughly 2 seconds. Once the sensor is in pairing mode, you can click on Next within the app. Once paired, you'll be able to give it a name and assign it to a room if you have them set up within your Switchbot home. Once configured, click on Save. If you have hubs added to your Switchbot account, you'll be able to select one to pair with it if you'd like. After being paired, the Switchbot app will walk you through installation. As indicated in the instructions, you want to make sure to keep it away from any heat sources and to make sure to not put it behind a door or facing a window. During installation, you'll be asked if you have a pet. Selecting Yes will change the instructions to indicate that the motion sensor should be installed a bit over half a foot higher than your pet to prevent false positives. Unless, of course, you want motion events to trigger from your pets as well. Installation will cover installing with or without the base, and go over a few different ways the base can be used with installation. The base has a magnet in it that allows for it to stick to metal as well. During installation, you'll be able to pick your motion sensitivity, which can range from long, medium, or short range. And you'll be able to test out the motion sensor as well. I recommend having your sensor installed where you plan to have it, to make sure that the sensitivity is going to work as expected for this step. Once you have the sensitivity set, you can click on Next to finish setup. Clicking on the motion sensor will bring up the main status page where you can see the ambient status, motion status, access automations, access logs, and change settings. Clicking on the cog on the right hand side of the screen will bring you to the settings section. Here you can change notification settings, turn the indicator light on or off, modify the motion sensitivity, calibrate the light sensor, and a few other settings. You'll most likely need to update the firmware of your motion sensor, which you'll be able to tell by if you have the red up arrow showing for the device. To update the firmware, go back into the settings of the device, scroll down and select firmware and battery. Next, click on firmware upgrade to start the process. Take note that you'll want to keep the app open until the process is completed. When the upgrade process finishes, you'll get a notification on your phone and the new version will be displayed. The Switchbot indoor camera records in 1080p HD resolution and is advertised to have a 130-degree viewing angle. The camera is considered dual storage with the ability to add up to 128 gigs of local storage through the onboard microSD slot or with cloud storage with a paid subscription. Like any good camera worth its weight, it has built-in IR LEDs for night vision and includes a microphone and speaker for two-way communication. The camera is also powered by a micro USB cable, which is included, but if you need a longer one or if you want it to be a different color, it's very easy to purchase a different cable, which I appreciate. To add the indoor camera to your Switchbot account, go into the Switchbot app and click on the plus sign at the top right-hand side of the screen. Next, plug the camera into its power source, then while waiting for the camera to boot, select the indoor camera from the device list. You may have to wait a few more moments for the camera to finish booting up. You'll know it's done because it'll start flashing red and give off a tone. Once the camera is finished booting, you can click on the flashing red button. You'll next enter in your wireless network information here. Keep in mind that the Switchbot indoor camera can only connect to 2.4 GHz wireless networks. Once your SSID and pre-shared key are entered for your network, click on Next to continue setup. Next, you will be presented with a QR code on your phone that you'll need to put in front of your camera to continue onboarding. I found this a bit difficult and had to make sure the lighting wasn't too bright to get the camera to see it, but I did finally manage to get the camera to detect the QR code, which triggered it to give off an audible prompt. After hearing the audible prompt, you can click on the red button to continue. Your phone will then communicate with the camera to finish onboarding the indoor camera. After it's finished connecting to your wireless network, you'll be able to name the indoor camera and assign it to a room if you have room set up for your Switchbot home. Once all done, you can click on Save. Once onboarding is complete, you should get a success message on your phone. Clicking on the indoor camera within the Switchbot app will bring up a live feed of the camera and some basic options such as changing the feed from HD to SD, muting and unmuting the microphone, recording a video, taking a photo, and speaking through the speaker. Clicking the two arrows on the right brings up additional options such as enabling privacy mode, which shuts the camera off while leaving the device on, night mode, which controls the IR LEDs for night vision and motion detection. For night mode, you can have it set to auto, off, or on. For motion detection, it's a simple on or off toggle here. You are also able to purchase a cloud storage service if you want to have off-site backup of your recordings. Just take note that the cost is per camera, so I would really consider just using a microSD card unless you really want to have off-camera backups. Clicking on the three dots on the right-hand side of the screen opens up the settings menu for the indoor camera. Here you will see many of the options on the previous screen, but clicking on basic settings will give us access to a few more settings. Here you can activate or disable the indicator light, flip the screen, add a time watermark, and change the talk mode for the camera. Under the main settings, you're also able to further configure motion detection. You can change the sensitivity, enable a detection area, and set up human-only detection. I do wish that the detection area was a bit more customizable with either more than one area or more shape options over just a single rectangle. I'd also like to see a pet detection option that can be enabled alongside human detection. If you add a microSD card to the camera, you are able to store constant recordings or event-only recordings. With full recordings, as well as event recording, video files are stored in a rolling fashion. This means once the memory card is full, the oldest video footage would be erased to make room for new footage. Keep in mind that the continuous recording will obviously fill up the memory card faster compared to event recording. For me, I used about 10 gigs of storage in 24 hours with continuous recording on. With recording on, you'll be able to go back and look at either the footage for that time frame or events if you have event recording on. When doing continuous recording, there are no markers for events that occurred, which is a bit disappointing and I hope is added soon. One thing I don't like about the indoor camera is how the app handles motion notifications. When they pop up on your phone, you can click on it and it takes you to the message for the notification and not to the event recording if you have a microSD card installed. I'm not sure if this is different in iOS or not, but this is a behavior for Android at least. I also noticed that if I remove the SD card from the camera, then no notification is sent to the phone. This means you might think you have your video recordings backed up, but actually your memory card has been corrupted for several weeks and you haven't been saving any footage. The Switchbot Contact Sensor and Motion Sensor can be added to a few other home automation services as well to help enhance your smart home capabilities. Some services include Google Home, Amazon Voice Assistant, If This Then That, and SmartThings. If you are interested in learning about connecting your Switchbot to smart home services, I'll have links in the description below for several of my quick tech tips going over how to set up integration between Switchbot and individual smart home services. Just keep in mind that in order for the contact sensors, motion sensors, and other Switchbot devices to interact with smart home platforms, you need to have a Switchbot hub. At the time of this recording, the Switchbot indoor camera is only compatible with Amazon Voice Assistant outside of the Switchbot ecosystem. Luckily with the indoor cameras, you do not need to have the Switchbot hub to set up the integration, and I'll have a link in the description below on how to set that up. Hopefully Switchbot will add Google Home support in the future for indoor cameras. The Switchbot Contact Sensor is packed with a lot of awesome features that I really like seeing and some things I've never seen built into a contact sensor as well. The included light sensor and motion sensor are great additions that can be used to take your home automations to the next level. The addition of entering and exiting a room with either the included button or motion is a great trigger for automations as well. I do think it would be cool to separate the button out from the enter-exit flow so that the button can be used to just trigger automations as well. Also take note that when using the contact sensor with third-party smart home integrations, only the contact sensor is shared. The light, motion, and button status are not provided to Google, Amazon, or SmartThings. The Switchbot Motion Sensor has been working flawlessly for me over the last couple of months without any issues. I both like and hate the stand, as it's nice to have an included magnet for more mounting options, but I do wish the magnet was a bit stronger and I found attaching the mount a bit difficult. The included light detection is a welcome addition to the sensor, but similar to the contact sensor, only the motion status of the motion sensor is shared with the other smart home services, which can be a bit limiting if you want to run your automations outside of the Switchbot ecosystem. You might be asking yourself, why should I get a contact sensor or indoor camera for my smart home? So let's go over a few examples of automations I have set up that can be used within the Switchbot ecosystem, as well as a few automations that work outside of the Switchbot ecosystem when tied into other smart home platforms. One automation I had set up is with the motion sensor set up in my office. When motion is detected between 8 AM and 1 PM, my Switchbot curtains will open my curtains for me. I could just set up a schedule for the curtains to open every day, but if I'm not working or working somewhere else for the day, there really isn't a reason for my curtains to be open. I do plan to pull in information from the Switchbot curtain itself and from my Switchbot meter so I can automatically close the curtain when the room gets too hot from the sun, but I still need to work out the logic for that. If I wanted to, I could use a contact sensor on my door and have the curtains open when the contact sensor goes into its enter state, but I usually keep the door open, so for this situation, the contact sensor really wouldn't work for me. Another option could also be using the motion detection from the indoor camera if I had one in my office. Another automation you can set up is with a contact sensor and a Switchbot bot on a light. For example, I have a contact sensor on the door to my medicine closet, and when the door is opened, if it's after 3 p.m., a Switchbot turns on the hall light right above it, allowing for me to be able to see better. You could do something similar in a kitchen or basement, but instead of using a contact sensor as your trigger, you could use a Switchbot Motion Sensor and use both its motion state and light state to trigger turning on the lights through a Switchbot bot. When integrating your Switchbot environment with other smart home platforms such as SmartThings, Google Home, Amazon, or if this then that, you open up your home automation abilities even further. For example, with having your Switchbot account integrated into Amazon, you're able to get audible notifications when your Switchbot indoor camera detects motion.
Motion detected at the indoor cam 8C.
You're also able to use certain sensors with Amazon Voice Assistant routines as both triggers as well as actions. And I shouldn't forget to mention that setting up the integration will give you voice control over your Switchbot devices as well. The same can be said for Google Home. The only difference being that the Switchbot indoor camera does not currently work with Google Home, and that you're not able to use devices as triggers for routines currently. But you can still use Switchbot devices as actions, and use your voice as well to control Switchbot devices. If you have Switchbot integrated with SmartThings, then you can have even more control over your automations by involving other devices within your automation rules. With the integration, you can use your Switchbot devices within the SmartThings automation engine and in SmartThings such as WebCore, which is what I use for my automation control. This allows me to pretty much replicate the rules I have set up within Switchbot, but have them run from my SmartThings hub, as well as use other devices such as motion sensors, smart light switches, or smart bulbs. One advanced automation I have set up is actually an advancement of my Switchbot automation when I enter my office. If the motion sensor in my office is triggered within a certain time of the morning on certain days, then I enter a working mode that accomplishes a few different things. Like the original automation, my curtains are still opened when I enter the office initially. I also get a text message from the house wishing me a good day. This automation kicking off also keeps track of the last time I stood or sat at my desk. This is accomplished with a Switchbot Contact Sensor on my standing desk leg that opens when it goes to a standing height. Every 30 minutes, WebCore checks the last time I stood, and if I have not gotten up within the last 20 minutes, I get a reminder that I should stand for a bit. And if for whatever reason I've been standing for over an hour, I get a reminder that I should maybe sit down for a little while as well. If you have any other ideas for what I could add to my office work automation, or other automations for Switchbot devices, make sure to let me know in the comments below. I do have a pack of the Switchbot tags coming later this week, so I might try to mess around with using those instead of the motion sensor for determining if it's a workday or not, but we will see once those are delivered. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows to show it to other people as well. And if you aren't already, consider subscribing to the channel and enabling notifications to be one of the first to know when I release other tech and home automation videos just like this one. Thank you for watching.